Hey everybody, this is D Hunter bringing another action figure review. Today we're going to be looking at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Batman action figure. This one is a comic-inspired Batman figure from Detective Comics number 1000, which is a milestone in the Batman history. So this is the first assortment of McFarlane Toys. McFarlane just got the DC license starting in January of 2020. Really looking forward to seeing how these guys stack up with some of the Mattel Batman figures. These guys here are going to be 7-inch scale, a little bit taller than the Mattel Multiverse, which were about 6.5 inches. Todd McFarlane has been saying that he's always wanted to make figures from one of the big three, being Marvel, DC, or Star Wars. He seems very passionate about the line, so I'm glad that McFarlane Toys presumably outbidded Mattel on the DC license. Really looking forward to seeing how this guy stacks up with older figures, height-wise, and articulation-wise, to see if they improved or possibly deproved the articulation. So let's go and check out the packaging here. DC Multiverse Batman. He's inside, got a batarang, got a grapple gun with a rope sticking out of it, got a stand in the background. Batman here, the plastic cape, nice looking utility belt, large bat signal with no yellow oval. Looks like some sort of collector card in the background here. Ages 12 plus. 22 moving parts. McFarlane Toys, you can see the Spawn logo back there. One side of the package, Detective Comics number 1000 from the comics. Other side simply says Batman. On the bottom here, we've got a barcode in case anyone needs that, and a bunch of credits. And then the back side here, you see Batman as he appeared in Detective Comics 1000, and then a bunch of other figures from the first assortment. We've got Nightwing here, who's going to be a little bit higher price point, $25. Comes with a Collect and Connect Batmobile, which is actually not for use with the figures, a little bit smaller. Armored Batman, animated John Stewart Green Lantern from Justice League Unlimited, Batman the Man Who Laughs from the comics, and then Harley Quinn from the comics as well. So with no further ado, let's open this guy up. And I got this figure with a huge haul of figures from Walmart at Target today. Not all the McFarlane figures are in hand, but hopefully they will be soon. And then I wanted to compare him in the package, compared with a recently released Mattel Multiverse Batman in the newer blue packaging. As you can see, not only is the figure larger, but the packaging itself is larger as well. But there is some familiarity too. You see at the bottom here, DC Multiverse, very similarly done that Mattel did, kind of implying that this is a continuation of some sort from the Mattel line. And I did end up getting two of these figures, one to open and enjoy, and one to keep unopened in my complete Batman 6 and 7-inch collection. And then here is my unopened version of this figure, taking its rightful place in front of my Batman and related comics with all of my other recent Batman and related acquisitions. Can't wait to get the rest of the McFarlane DC figures. Here they are next to some of the Mattel Multiverse figures in the new packaging. And then speaking of Detective Comics number 1000, here's the source material this figure is based off of. Detective Comics 1000 was a 96-page giant issue. Of course, huge landmark in Batman Comics, being number 1000. Here's the first cover that I got. This one is specifically what the figure is based off of. I got a couple different versions of the same cover. And then I got every other cover that they released. And they made cover after cover after cover for Detective Comics 1000. Once again, all these are Detective Comics number 1000, same book on the inside, but a bunch of different cover variants, even the blank cover here. Alright, now that we got this figure out of the package, here he is with all of his accessories laid out. And like I said before, he's got one of those cheap sort of generic DC stands. He's got a collector's card from Detective Comics number 1000. He comes with both a batarang and a grapple gun that has a rope sticking out of it. But before we look at the accessories, let's check out the actual figure. So we've been looking forward to this guy for a long time. McFarlane DC figures. You can see his feet, boots. Got sculpted boots up here, not just painted. His cape's kind of flowing in the wind. It's made of plastic, not cloth, but it's definitely bendable. See his utility belt here. Looking pretty nice. He's got his gauntlets here. Looks like mine are curled a little bit. Easy to fix that. Double jointed knees. Double jointed elbows. Not something Mattel gave us very often for Batman. He's got some texture on his costume here. Large bat logo with no oval on the chest. A little bit annoying. I mean, this part's made of soft material, but it's going to hinder the articulation a little bit. Looks like he's got butterfly joints inside of there on his shoulders. Head seems maybe a tad small. Maybe just because I'm used to Mattel's heads. Overall, it looks pretty decent. White eyes. Short ears, but not super short. Square jaw. Overall, it's looking pretty much as good as anything Mattel ever gave us, if you ask me. Next, let's check out his accessories. Starting off with the boring stuff that I don't care too much about. I'm not much of a stand guy. Here's a stand, pretty basic. It's really, really thin. It's got a peg up here for the feet and the DC logo at the bottom. But like I said before, I'm not much of a stand guy, so it's going into a huge bin of stands, never to be seen again. Then we got this collector's card here. It's the cover of Detective Comics number 1000. Batman with Joker. On the back, it's got a description, data file of Batman. Next, let's check out his batarang. First of all, I want to say it's not the same sculpt and reuse from the Batman animated series of Batman. They have unique batarangs, which is pretty cool. Thing is solid black. It's the shape of the Batman logo. And my only gripe is that it's a little bit thicker than I kind of like. It's made of a pretty hard material. It's not very bendy. Here he is holding the batarang. This Batman has two gripping hands, so either one can accompany the batarang. As you can see, just a little bit thicker than I'm kind of used to, but you know what? It fits in his hand well. This is about as far back as you're going to get him to be able to hold the batarang, as his cape pretty much prevents his arm from going any further back than this. Next, let's check out his Grapnel Launcher. This thing here has a rope permanently attached, and it's got the hook part at the end. You can put me into the crowd of people that would prefer a Grapnel Launcher without the rope permanently attached, or at least have it removable. I'd rather just have the thing by itself with a hook on the end, or with nothing, so Batman can hold it, and you can kind of use your own imagination. It's kind of twisted around in the middle. So you've got the Bat logo at the top there, and the handle here. Got a little bit of sculpting detail, and it's all one color, silver. Here he is holding his Grapnel Launcher with his right hand, grapple extended, getting ready to jump up in the air. And you know what? He can hold it pretty high up in the air, as well as look up to where he's grappling. And of course, if you want him to, he can hold both of his accessories at the same time. The fact that he only has gripping hands, I'm sure some people will not be happy with, as it'd be nice if he had interchangeable hands, maybe a fist or two. Me personally, if I get a bunch of hands, the gripping hands are usually my default hands anyway, because you can easily double them up and sort of pretend he's making a fist out of them. So I'm okay with just having them, but a little bit disappointing that Batman of all characters didn't get extra hands when a bunch of other characters did. Now that we've taken a very good look at his accessories, next let's check out the height of this figure. So this figure here, from bottom to top, from the top of his head, he's at about 7.0 inches. And that measures up to be about 18 centimeters. And then if you go to the top of the ears, it's about 7¼ inches. Next, let's check out this guy's articulation, starting with his head here. So his head, it can rotate from side to side with ease. It can look down about that far, which is pretty nice, and up about that far. One thing I did notice when handling this figure, you pull on his head, it comes off pretty easily. Not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it doesn't fall off, but it looks like you're going to have no problem with head swaps. So his cape here is made of a soft material. It can't bend, and his shoulders will obstruct the articulation, but they can go up, so I mean, it's not like it's going to be an impossible thing to pass. His shoulders here, they have a ball joint, and then go out quite a bit, more than 90 degrees, which is pretty nice. It looks like they're Fortnite articulation, and there is an area of plastic between the chest and bicep area here. I believe it's called a butterfly joint. Allow him to go in and out quite a bit. Go up, down, around, all that fun stuff. He has a bicep cut below that. Double jointed elbows. Boy, has it been a long time since this has been the standard on a Batman figure. And when I say been a long time, almost never. Very few figures from DC Collectibles and Mattel do that. That is great. He's got nothing going on here. He does have sort of a ball between his hand and his forearm here. Now this thing can rotate around, no problem. It's also hinged. And if you wanted to change where the hinge is, this thing can rotate at the base as well as where the wrist connects to it. So you can rotate the ball and then it'll be hinged in a different direction. He's got two different ball joints in his chest here, kind of like an ab crunch. He's got one here below my fingernail and then one here where the waist swivel would be. Not only can it rotate around, but it can go in and out as well. The bottom one, same thing, can rotate around no further than that, but it can also go in and out as well. Give this guy a huge range of motion in his torso area. Legs got about this far. Not really a ball joint, but they can go in and out that far, completely do the splits. They can move independently of what's inside of there. They go forward, really not too much, not full 90 degrees. Should be able to sit though. Back, not too much either. Knees double jointed, then go back that far. He has a similar ball between his foot and leg area from his wrist. Can go up and down like so. Can rotate around, and it can't really rock, but if you were to take the ball, rotate it, rotate his foot back, then yes, it could rotate all you want it to. I do find these type of ankles to be annoying, just a pain in the ass to execute properly. DC Essentials and Fortnite figures have them as well. Then he does have toe articulation in addition. And while we're on the subject of articulation, I was wondering, can this guy sit down? So you take the chair for the Batman Animated Series playset, take a figure, put his legs into a sort of a sitting position. His legs really go about that high at best. Of course, his cape is going to interfere with this particular guy sitting. But if you want to know, would it work? I do believe this guy could sit down pretty easily if he didn't have a cape. Kind of making it difficult. Now, another thing I wanted to point out, take this guy's head off. His cape here is attached. It's glued on sort of inside there. I'm not sure if you can fully see it up there. I mean, it can be removed with ease, but it is permanently attached. It's not like you can just pop his head off, pull the cape off, put his head back on, then have him sit down. But it looks like these figures are going to be able to sit down without really any problem there. Next, let's check this guy out compared with some other action figures. Starting off with the other McFarlane figures that I have so far, then with a bunch of different Batman figures from different lines and companies, and then with a bunch of other action figures from various action figure companies and lines to see how he fits in both scale and style-wise. Here he is next to the McFarlane Superman, modern Batman together, world's finest. Here he is next to all the different McFarlane DC figures that I've picked up so far. I'm really looking forward to getting the rest, which are going to be Arrow, Armored Batman, Armored Superman, Nightwing, Batgirl, and Batman the Man Who Laughs. Here he is next to some NECA Batman figures. In my opinion, NECA makes some of the best Batman figures out there. It'd be really cool to see what NECA would do with the DC license. McFarlane's doing a great job so far, and they're keeping it at a great price point. These NECA figures are detailed a little bit better, but they'd probably be about $30 each. This Batman here from the recently released Batman vs. Aliens 2-pack from New York Comic Con is probably the best Batman figure out there, or at least in the top 3. You can see them compared to each other. Similar scale, but definitely a little bit softer sculpt and details on this guy. I mean, just look at him. Tell me what you think. And while these aren't exactly Batman figures, here he is with a bunch of different Batman allies from the TV show Gotham. These are DST, or Diamond Select Toys, action figures. Here he is next to some older DC Direct action figures. I'm really happy that we're going to be getting a continuing line that will scale up with these older DC Direct, Diamond Select, NECA, McFarlane action figures. And here he is next to some more recently released DC Collectibles Batman figures. And a little bit of a closer shot of him next to the DC Collectibles DC Essentials Batman figure. This is an ongoing line that DC Collectibles is still making, and it's great that these guys scale up together. And here he is next to some DC Direct and DC Collectibles Batman figures from all 4 of the different Arkham games. Here he is next to some Mezco 1/12 cloth soft goods Batman figures. And then as we're looking at McFarlane's first DC Batman figure, here we are passing the torch from Mattel to McFarlane after all these years. Here are 3 different Batman figures from the original Mattel 6-inch line, simply titled Batman. It's a great line kicking off with a whole bunch of different characters. New scale, much more accurate sculpt. This guy here on the far right is the Bat Signal Batman. He was a European exclusive of some sort and came with a functioning Bat Signal. Very hard to get nowadays. First we had the line Batman, then it led to DC Superheroes, then it led to DC Universe Classics, then it led to Multiverse, and now McFarlane's Multiverse is taking place of Mattel's. Here he is next to several different Mattel DC Universe Classics Batman figures. And here he is next to several different Mattel Multiverse Batman figures. Now I really want to include this Build-A-Figure Ninja Batman, as he is exactly the same height as the McFarlane Batman. Those of you that were complaining that they're going up a full inch, that's definitely not accurate. These Mattel Multiverse figures are really not much smaller than the McFarlane figure. If you look at this group here, this guy is definitely the smallest of them. And for those that are complaining how bad these McFarlane toys look, I mean, really, look at these guys next to each other. I realize this is a throwback Kenner figure on the right, based off an old, basic, generic design. But really, look at this. And you're saying McFarlane's not better? Here he is, next to some Mafex Batman figures. Here he is next to a couple of slightly smaller scale DC Direct and DC Collectibles figures. On the left-hand side, we've got the DC Icons figures. These guys are pretty much 6.0 inch scale versus the usual 7-inch DC Direct scale. And on the right-hand side, we've got the Batman the Animated Series figures from DC Collectibles. And here, next to some SH Figure Arts Batman figures. And here he is, next to some Mattel Movie Master figures. This was a line that ran alongside DC Universe Classics, but chose to be a slightly smaller scale at the same time. And before we look at him, next to some other action figure lines, let's see which vehicles he fits on. Here he is with the Movie Master Batpod. He's a little large, but you know what, I think it works pretty well. And here he is on the DC Collectibles Batman the Animated Series Batcycle. He's definitely too large for this. His handles can fit on the handlebars, but his feet sure don't go on the pedals. If you're not picky, it's fudgeable, that's for sure. And I will say, with his plastic large cape, he's really not going to sit in a sit-down vehicles that have cockpits, such as Batmobiles or Batwings. There are some customizers that are going to put cloth capes on him, and I really look forward to seeing that. I know Mr. Skeesler is going to do that. If I were to guess, without being able to actually verify, I would guess that he would fit into the DC Multiverse Justice League Batmobile, as well as the Ultimate radio-controlled version. I'd guess that he would not fit in the animated series Batwing, but would fit in the Batmobile. And I would also guess that he would fit in the Mattel Batman Batmobile, but stick out a little bit too far. Would probably not fit in the 66 Batmobile. Just my thoughts there. Here he is, standing in the Batcave, working at the computer. Definitely a little bit too large for that particular Batcave playset, but still cool to be able to put him inside. Whether he has his trophies, working in his lab, or wanting to take out one of his many vehicles. And if you put him next to a Mattel, Damian Wayne Robin, they work great together, look great, and scale great. Next, let's check him out compared with some other action figure lines to see how he fits in case you want to mix them. Here he is with some of his McFarlane brothers. This in front of you is 5 different action figure lines from McFarlane Toys. All 7-inch scale, all fit in pretty good together. And while we're on the subject of McFarlane Toys, and we had a Fortnite figure out there, here are 5 Fortnite figures that I have that I thought would make some pretty good Batman adversaries. These are suited guys with some theatricality to them. And here he is next to some DST or Diamond Select Toys action figures. Here he is next to some various NECA action figures. And here he is next to some DC Direct and DC Collectibles figures. And here he is next to some Mattel wrestling figures. And here he is next to some Mattel DC Universe Classics and Multiverse figures. Here he is next to some Mafex figures. And then next to some Hasbro Marvel Legends. And here he is next to some Jazzwares figures. So now my overall thoughts on this figure. I've been collecting Mattel figures for well over 10 years. They've had the license for more than 15 years. So this passing the torch is a pretty big deal for me. I'm really into my Batman figures, as you can tell. And I must say, this figure delivered. Is it perfect? No, definitely not. This is their first Batman offering. All things considered, I think it's pretty good. The articulation is nice. The sculpt's pretty nice. A little bit soft in a couple areas. The articulation is hindered a little bit, which is very disappointing. Give this guy a cloth cape and it's going to really improve him tremendously. Probably give him a slightly better head as well. This is a great base body for customizers. And you know what? It's a pretty good figure as is. I think McFarlane will improve over time. Hopefully they will be open to feedback from fans. If I were to rate this figure, I'd go ahead and give him a 7 out of 10. At this particular moment, I think I'm enjoying him more than that, but I think the initial novelty will wear off of McFarlane getting the license, having a pretty solid Batman figure. So this is D. Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this review. If you like the review, press like below. If you have anything to say about the review, add it to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Keep your eye out for reviews on the rest of the McFarlane figures, even the ones I did not picture. I will get them soon. Once again, this is D. Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys real soon.